Bible who had an encounter with Jesus. The first one I want to look at, well, not really at this point, but this kind of like a quiz. Do you remember the very first miracle that Jesus performed and where it took place? Cana. And what happened? That's exactly right. Now, I'm going to get by without preaching a Mother's Day sermon because I won't going to mention Jesus' mother for just a minute here. So anyway, I don't know what relationship that Jesus had with the bride or groom, or the Bible doesn't tell us what relationship or responsibility even that Mary had with the wedding. But Mary became concerned when the liquid refreshment. Now you got to understand that the weddings in that day lasted probably a week. People had to travel from long distances, so they came, they stayed, they partied. People got married, and there was parties, and then folks went home. So about a week, and toward the end of that party, the liquid refreshment was not quite as good. In fact, it was running out. And so Mary came to her son. I think she was a proud mama. I think she probably understood what he was fully capable of doing. But I think that she had this special feeling, like a mama does toward her children, or child, or daughter, or son, that this special feeling that my kid is different than everybody else. And so she came to Jesus with a problem. Son, we're out of wine. Oh, what a pity. Now, I don't know if, I'm just going to give him the benefit of the doubt. I don't know if he was, I've had these moments with my own mother, even in the last week. And we'll probably have some of these moments in the near future. I don't know if he was having one of these moments with his mom like a lot of kids do. But he said, "Woman, what does that have to do with us?" Now, I don't know if he said it that way. That's just my impression. Woman, and by the way, that's not being disrespectful. He was totally respectful to his mama. But Mary then kind of took it in stride, and she said, "Well, son, we need some more wine." And so Jesus said, "Woman, what's that got to do with us?" And what's the very next thing Mary did? "Hey, let's get some guys up here, because we need to get these water pots filled with water." She didn't even wait for... Jesus could have gone and filled the pots. Not Mary. She had to take it in her own hands and do what mamas do best. Assign tasks. So, the next thing that Jesus says is something like this. Or what she says next is something like this. To the water. By the way, you get a 5-gallon jug of water, and that's heavy. But you get a 25-gallon or a 30-gallon, which is probably what these were. And you had to walk to get the water and carry the pot and the water back. That was no easy task.
About 240 pounds.
At least, at the minimum. And so Mary took the responsibility in her own hands, and she turned to the group of guys who were going to take care of this responsibility, and she says, "Whatever he says to you," what? Do it. Just like a mama, right? Just do it. And I think that's what a proud mama might say. And so that was the first miracle that Jesus performed in the town of Cana of Galilee. This morning I want to take us to another encounter that Jesus had. And this is also in the city of Galilee, or city of Cana of Galilee. Second occasion where Jesus made a trip with his disciples, and there was a second miracle that occurred. And that's kind of where we pick up the story this morning, with a royal official. Therefore he, that is Jesus, came again to Cana of Galilee, where he had made the water wine. And there was a royal official whose son was sick in Capernaum. And when he heard that Jesus had come out of Judea into Galilee, he went to him and was imploring him to come down and heal his son. For he was at the point of death, that is, the son, obviously. So Jesus said to him, unless you people see signs and wonders, you simply will not believe. The royal official said to him, Sir, come down before my child dies. Jesus said to him, Go, your son lives. The man believed the word that Jesus spoke to him and started off. As he was now going down, his slaves met him, saying that his son was living. So he inquired of them the hour when he began to get better. Then he said to him, Yesterday at the 7th hour the fever left him. Ironically, this was the same hour that Jesus told the man to hit the road. Go back, find out what's going on at home. So the father knew that it was that hour in which Jesus said to him, Your son lives. And he himself believed in his whole household. This is again a second sign that Jesus performed when he had come out of Judah into Galilee. I want you to know this morning, that Jesus wants you.
Amen.
Amen.
And if you've not had an encounter with him yet, he wants to have an encounter with you. I have met people most of my adult life. Some have made an impression, some have not made such a huge impression. But can you remember one person or two, generally speaking, and we're not influential enough to say, well, you know, I know kings and queens and presidents and governors and all those kinds of people. But can you remember one very important person that you met in your life? That for whatever circumstance, someone that you maybe just encountered, maybe it was a planned visit, that one person who kind of left you speechless, you know what I mean? Weak knees, oh, it's kind of like that. I remember during the tornado, I got to meet some influential people. I got to meet the governor of Missouri, got to talk to the governor of Missouri. I wasn't impressed. Not that he wasn't the governor, but he was just a man like me, spoke like me, acted like me. We had an occasion to go out to Sam's. Someone had brought in a giant, enormous, I've never seen a barbecue grill like this, Rick. It came in on a semi, and it just kind of, you know, like Star Wars. And it came open, and there's all these grills down both sides. And lo and behold, I met Frank White. You don't even know who he is?
Yes.
Okay. I was so impressed. I was so glad to be introduced. Well, he played for the Kansas City Royals, for you that are not Royals fans like Rick. He played for the Royals, and I got to meet him. And he was just a guy, just like me. We had a nice conversation. My knees didn't shake. I didn't go, oh, what am I going to say to the poor guy?
How many World Series rings do you have?
None. 0. Can you imagine not meeting Frank White or whoever you named in your own mind? Can you imagine meeting Jesus Christ face to face and having an encounter with him? Well, this encounter that we read the story of happened on his second trip to Cana. It was a gentleman, probably a man of some importance. John described him as what? A royal official. Some versions call him a nobleman from Capernaum. Some believe he was likely a member of the royal family, perhaps even one of Herod's trusted officials. But whatever his significance was, he was not as important as Jesus. And he had this encounter with Jesus. Now, Capernaum was just about 20 miles from Cana. Maybe the man had heard some other things that Jesus had been doing. Maybe he even heard about the wedding feast. But he came to this place specifically to meet up with Jesus because he had a problem. What was his problem? What? His son was dying. Now here's a man with power, prestige, very likely personal wealth, contacts in the community. Maybe he had the best access to the best physicians. He certainly had the ear of Herod. He was one of Herod's officials. But not one of those people could do what Jesus could do.
That's right.
It is not power. It is not prestige. It is not influence. It's not who you know that can do something for you. Only Jesus can do that. Now, I'm a daddy. I can only imagine that before he came to Cana, he had already tried everything that he could try. Don't you imagine that?
Oh, yeah.
Probably taking this doctor or that doctor or whatever he might have done, and he tried everything to the best of his ability. Money is no object, and yet his son was dying. Now this father, when he came to Jesus, was desperate. I don't know if you came to Jesus in a desperate way. I didn't so much. But some people come to Jesus because they're desperate. This man's son was dying right before his very eyes. The most important thing of all that he owned, all the money, all the possessions that he had, the most important thing to him was slipping away into death. And he couldn't do one thing about it. Now, I put myself in his place and in their place, the father and the mother, and I can only imagine that night and day and night they were tending to their son. They were hovering over their boy. They were doing everything within their power to nurse their loved one and give him comfort and maintain his life. And now they reached the point, the line, where there was nothing else that they could do. And so he came to Cana to see Jesus, to see if this man could help his son to live, or would he die? I can imagine him turning to his wife. He said, honey, you know, the only thing we have left is a miracle from God. Let me go find him and see if he can do that. And so in a moment of clarity, the father realized that everything he had, his rank, his privilege, all those things meaning nothing. In fact, if I was him and he was me, I would very quickly say, I will give up everything that I own. You can take the shirt off my back, the shoes off my feet. You come and pick up everything in my house, everything that you want, except my wife and my child. And I'll give you everything if you can bring my son to life again. Can you imagine that? Would you do that?
Yeah.
I think any parent might do that. But there's some things that money just can't buy. So, when he heard, and I don't know how he heard, maybe it's on the evening news, I don't know. The Gazette, maybe. But he heard that Jesus had come out of Judea into Galilee, and so he journeyed to him, he went to him, and was imploring him to come down and heal his son, for his son was at the point of death. Now, I can get the picture. Oh man, I've got to go to Cana, you know, like this. What do you envision? He put on his jets, and he went as fast as he could get there. He rushed to Jesus. And notice the word that John uses when he finally had this encounter with Jesus. Did it pop out? I kind of emphasized it. What does it say? He was imploring. Imploring what? Please, please, I'll give you everything, anything that I own, if you come and heal my son. That's not the word. That is not the word. The word implore simply means to ask a question. Nothing profound about that. You mean he simply rushed to Cana of Galilee to find Jesus? It's like, hey, I've got a question. That's the word. Well, we have more passion than that in the word, don't we? And I think it was there too. But that's what the word means. Just ask a question. Now, what I find strange about, well, there's several things, but what I find strange about this is that he was imploring for something that he couldn't buy back. He couldn't go someplace and borrow it back. All those irreplaceable moments of his son's childhood, he could never regain those things. Now, did you notice how Jesus responded? Look at this. This kind of set me back on my heels for a moment. Here's a man who is desperate. I'll give you anything if you just come and heal my son. And Jesus says what? Lest you people see signs and wonders, you simply will not believe. Well, that's not the answer I wanted. And he kind of seems to rebuke this man. I don't know if it was a rebuke or not. It's hard to read into words, a voice inflection, an attitude. That's the problem with Facebook and texting and those kinds of things. It's flatline. You can make a comment and the other person goes, I'm totally offended by that. Well, I didn't mean that at all. Because you can't hear my voice and see my face and all those other things. But I do know that Jesus was a newsmaker. Here's a man who could turn water, ordinary stuff that we pours out of our faucet. He could take that ordinary water and turn it into the very best. This wasn't like midway between bad wine and good wine. He didn't say, well, they're totally drunk now, they won't even notice anyway. No, what did he do? He gave them the very best of the wine. Not, that wasn't the stuff that go, man, they'll never notice. It's the junk stuff. Now, perhaps the surrounding atmosphere, I don't know. I wish I was there. All I have is the words that are written. But maybe, in my mind's eye, I'm trying to develop this picture. I think in pictures. And so I'm trying to think about this whole environment in which the nobleman had come to Jesus, and there's Jesus. And I think it's not just them. I think the community's there, and maybe it's kind of like circus-esque. You know what I mean? Step right up. See the signs and wonders of this miracle-working man performed right before your very eyes. I don't know if it's like that or not. But that's the picture I have. And that's exactly what Jesus did not want to happen. That's why he said to his mother, why are you doing this to me? My time has not yet come. I'm not ready for this. In fact, that's what he said. Woman, what does it have to do with us? My hour has not yet come. And what he's saying is that I don't want my experience on earth, the things that I'm doing or going to do. I don't want the things, the miracles and my hand on people, and I don't want that to look like some sideshow experience that's going to excite people for a day. And then they disappear. You know what I'm talking about? You ever see that in a church? Church? Yeah, we do. Let's get all excited. Let's go to Jesus. Let's let Jesus save me. Oh, next week, where are they? Huh? And Jesus didn't want that to become a simple attraction. Don't come to me just so you can see the miracle, like a trained monkey or something. I want you for a lifetime. And so maybe you can visualize this with me. Maybe I'm totally wrong about all this. But maybe you can visualize this with me, that the Father's hands kind of reaching out to Jesus. Maybe he even fell to his knees. And he was pleading, begging, Jesus, please, please do something. Heal my child. And that's what he said. Sir, respectfully, come down before my child dies. You know what that says? He had full confidence that what he was asking Jesus to do, Jesus could do. Right. Now, I said earlier that maybe Jesus was a little harsh. I don't know that he was, but maybe he was. Let's give him the benefit of the doubt. But I want you to notice now his compassion. Son, or sir, go to your son. Because your son now is alive. Well, he was technically dead. Not that the life was out of him, not that he breathed his last breath and his heart had beaten its last beat. But to the father, his son was lying in bed, dead. And so Jesus said to him, go, your son lives. The guy said, yeah, you got to be kidding me.
Nope, he believed.
It says he believed the word that Jesus spoke. And if he got to Cana fast, can you imagine how fast he got back home?
Oh, boy.
He double-stepped it. Well, that's a great story, isn't it?
It is.
That's a wonderful story. Well, notice what else John adds. As he was now going down, his slaves, his own servants, met him, and saying to him, man, whatever they called him, master, your son is living. And so he inquired of them the hour when it began to get better. And they said, yesterday at the 7th hour, the fever left him. And the dad realized that was the very same time that Jesus said, get out of town, go home. Your son now lives. And he himself believed, and his whole household. Now what we find is a desperate man who had a certain level of hope. He believes that if anything can be done for his son, who can do it? Herod?
Jesus.
The doctors? Nope. Only Jesus. And so a side story, I think, is seen of faith that really is growing. I mean, it's almost immediate.
Sure.
From the encounter, you can almost see his faith begin to develop. A different level of faith, even than when he had his encounter with Jesus. And so I say all that to say this. Maybe you're here this morning and you're at that level. What level? Well, a level of caution. I've heard about Jesus. I've seen some of the things that he's done, but I'm not quite sure. Is God disturbed by cautious faith? I don't think so. I know you're shaking your head. Sherry and I are going to go. She's going. You're not going to know. I'm going to explain this, Sherry, because I'm pretty sure you're going to agree with me in a minute. I don't think God is disturbed by cautious faith, even a faith born out of desperation. This man was not a believer when he arrived. He was cautious about this. He presumed Jesus could do something about it, but he wasn't 100% sure, and so he was a little cautious about it, at least in my mind. And sadly, I think one of the things that keep people from putting their full faith in Jesus is that they think they don't need him. You ever been there? I don't really need Jesus to get me through this one. I can do this one on my own. I mean, who's going to bother Jesus on this one? We can get this one done. And so for many of us, as long as everything is going well in our life, happy Monday, happy Tuesday, happy Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, everything is going well in our life, Jesus, you just stay where you are, and I'll open the door and call you out when I need you the most. You know what I'm talking about.
I do.
Then that day arrives, and I'm desperate. And I'm wondering, where's God in all this? God doesn't really care. He does. We just haven't invited him to take care of the little things, so we don't know what God can do.
That's right.
When we realize how helpless we are to deal with the problems of our lives, then we find ourselves reacting like the royal official, the nobleman, and we open the door and we find Jesus. That's what he did. And Sherry, I think God's okay with that. Because desperation breaks down our foolish pride. Right?
Yeah.
You ever been that desperate?
Yes.
Rick explained it in Sunday school class. His testimony is spot on to what I'm talking about. Now, the nobleman, we have to say, well, he had some measure of faith. Why would he get up and go to Cana, 20 miles away, if he didn't believe Jesus could do something? That's a measure of faith, but it was a cautious faith. I guess we all live by faith. That faith is essential to our lives. We go out there or over here and we turn the light switch on. We don't have to think, well, if I turn that light switch on, how's that going to function? Where's that electricity begin with in the first place? And how does it arrive to this building and up to that switch? And then if I switch the light on, I wonder which lights that's going to... You know what I'm talking about? You do that? I don't do that. I only walk over the wall and hit the switch. And if the light comes on, everything's okay. If the lights don't come on, then we got us a problem. Right? C.S. Lewis wrote this. Atheism turns out to be too simple. If the whole universe has no meaning, we should never have found out that it has no meaning. Just as if there was no light, were no light in the universe, and therefore no creature with eyes, we should never know it is dark. You think those little creatures that live in the caves and never developed eyes, you think they go, man, I can't see a thing. Wonder what's like in the light. Huh? It's crazy, isn't it? C.S. Lewis also wrote a book called Mere Christianity. Maybe you've read that. In it he says it's no good asking for simple religion. After all, real things are not simple. They look simple, but they're not. Just like turning on the light switch. The table I'm sitting at looks simple, but ask a scientist to tell you what it's really made of, all the atoms and how the light waves rebound from them and hit my eye and what they do to the optic nerve and what it does to my brain. And of course, you find that what we call seeing a table lands you in the mysteries and complications which you can hardly get to the end of. Sometimes faith is cautious and born out of desperation. And that's where the faith, I think, of this royal official began. Jesus knew that. It was not a surprise to him. He knows about us. He knows how we're going to come to him. It's going to be a simple faith? Probably. Heard this story about a traveler. Early days of our country. He came to a large river. Not knowing the area, he came to the river and looked around. There was no bridge. Now, fortunately, it was winter, and there was an ice cover over the water, over the river. Now, the problem is he didn't know how thick the ice was. And so he's very cautious. He found no other way to cross, so he got down on his hands and knees, and he began inch by inch by inch by inch, making his way across the ice until he arrived about halfway across the river, and then behind him, he heard this loud noise. He thought maybe the ice was cracking. But when he looked around, what he saw was another man crossing the river, driving a wagon load of coal pulled by 4 horses. Now, one traveler had faith from past experience. The other traveler had faith that was cautious. You see that? Both men made it across. So it's not the depth of our faith that saves us. It's who we have faith in.
Amen.
And Jesus is the rock. And he carries all of our life experience if we'll let him. That first traveler that I spoke of, I think, had the faith of the nobleman. Very cautious, kind of creeping along, crawling on his hands and knees, not quite ready to put his full trust in Jesus. And I think Jesus understood that. That he was not coming to him because he was the Savior. He's not coming to him because he's the Messiah. Why was that man coming to Jesus?
To save his boy.
Plain and simple. To save his son. But my friends, that's okay. Jesus understands. And he knows the depth of our faith. Some have a cautious faith. Now, you're going to misunderstand this word before I explain it. Some have a worldly faith. And by that I mean that not all faith begins from a spiritual standpoint. Do you know anyone among you whose faith began not from a spiritual standpoint? You want me to move front and center? Do I have to tell you the whole story again? My faith did not come from a spiritual standpoint. It was totally worldly. I came because I did not want to go to hell. That's the only reason. Willie, I didn't know who Jesus was until later. That's totally worldly in that respect. And so Jesus said to him, "Sir, go, your son lives." And now I find this reaction quite interesting. Jesus said, "Go, your son lives." Notice the man's reaction. He believed the word. Now I know that word is a lowercase word, but I think we could just as easily put the capital W in there. Jesus is the word, right?
And he was desperate enough to have the faith to go there.
Indeed, he believed the word that Jesus spoke to him, and he took off like a racehorse. Now, my question when I read this, Big Joe, did he fully trust Jesus at that point? Or was it later?
Later.
I don't know. I just know he had faith.
Well, he was cautious. He wanted to believe. He had that faith to go there to begin with because he was desperate.
He didn't make Jesus go back with it.
Nope.
The woman did to Elijah.
Nope, he didn't.
He just,
Indeed.
he wanted to believe it.
All of these things that I'm going, I wonder how I would respond.
I don't know.
If I was in the same situation, how might I react to this event? Now, I know we're in Kansas this morning, but our next door neighbors are the Show Me State. Right?
Right?
Have you heard this phrase? You can finish it. I'm going to say you finish the last word. The proof is in the
Pudding.
You know what? You do not know the phrase. Because the actual saying goes like this, Willie. The proof of the pudding is in the eating. That's the phrase. Did you know that, John? There you go, buddy. In other words, The test of the recipe and the skill of the chef is not in the presentation. What is it?
When they eat it.
In the taste.
In the consumption.
In the taste.
Yeah.
Recently, Mikhail, I'm going to put you on the spot. 2 weeks ago, I think it was a Sunday. Doesn't matter what day it was. She handed me a container with 6 German chocolate cupcakes.
Atta girl. Yeah.
She won my heart immediately. And then she said to me, I want you to be totally honest.
All right.
By the way, I only got one of the cupcakes out of the whole deal.
They were really good.
That doesn't mean she ate 5. No, she's not admitting to 5. I can honestly say, Mikhail, and I've already told her this, those were absolutely the very best German chocolate cupcakes I have ever eaten in my life. They were covered in chocolate. You take one bite, and inside is that German chocolate stuff. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, the coconut and nuts
Are your
and
mouth-
goody.
is your mouth
Oh,
watering?
yeah, yeah.
I should have saved one.
I'm tasting it right now.
It was absolutely delicious, is my appraisal. And she also wanted my advice, so I gave it to her. Mikhail, you know those deluxe cupcakes that people make? Not the little ones, that's what she gave me, but the double size. Here's what I think you ought to do. I think you ought to make it absolutely the same way you did, but put a dollop of fudge on top in the middle. So when you bite into that, not only do you get chocolate and cake, you get fudge, and then you get all the gooey. Oh. You don't have to do that. I'll take the regular old ones like you made, but
Regular old.
oh yeah. Apostrophe. Oh man, I wish I had one right now. Where was I going with that? I know exactly where I was going. When she said that, my faith was cautious. I've eaten some that was not good. You know what I'm talking about, Larry? You just eat it out of kindness. Glass of milk. They were so moist. With that center, they almost dripped with moistness. No milk needed, Rick. My faith was cautious until I took a bite, and then I was sold.
Absolutely.
Cautious faith is just the beginning. It's not there yet. It may be the faith you have. It may not be the best faith yet, but it is the most powerful faith that you have at that point in your life. And God wants us to have those kinds of. He's not bothered that my faith is cautious nor worldly, but this is what God really wants. He wants us to come to a saving faith. Jesus made it very clear that there was something more than just healing this man's son. So he's going down to slave many. We've read the story that very hour, that yesterday, the 7th hour. Notice this. Your son lives, and he himself believed in what? His entire household. His entire house. Earlier, this man had taken Jesus at his word. That's what it says. But now John says, with the evidence of the healed son, he and his entire, I don't know how many people that was. Just says his entire household. His whole household believed. And it was not just to believe that his son could be healed. That belief now became a reality because when he got home, guess what? The son was at the front door waiting for Dad to come in. Or maybe he'd run out the front door to meet his dad in the street. Jordan, we're going to look at this video here in a sec. Martin Luther King Jr. once said, faith is taking the first step even when you don't see the whole staircase. What is the very thing that you are most frightened of doing? Well, mine is height, being up high. I don't mind being up this high, and I could probably be up this high, 100 times this high, as long as I have this platform under me. We went to New York City, we went to Rockefeller Center, and all the way up in that building where you can see the world around you, and I'm going, whoa, this is not good. I really had no fear of falling off the side, but there was just something weird about this. Show the video, Joe.
See you soon. Woo, that's a view there, buddy.
Woo, that's a view there, buddy. He's right. Woo.
What is wrong with this guy?
That makes me, I can't even watch this.
Praise you, God.
Praise.
Praise you, Jesus.
I'm thinking crazy guy. He said praise you, Jesus.
How's that reacting now, Nick? I'm not liking it. Yeah. Oh, Lord. Thank you, Jesus. Yep, that's it. You're doing right. You're doing good. Lord, help this cable to calm down. Command it in your name, Jesus, with the authority of God. Praise you. Praise you, Jesus. How you feeling, Nick? Good. A lot of wind. Yeah, I know it's out there. Just, you're doing the right thing, though. Thank you. Yes, Jesus. That's my King. Praise you. Praise you, Jesus. I don't want to talk to anyone, Dad. Okay. Gotcha. Praise you, Lord. Winds are way worse than I expected.
You're doing fine, though. You're handling fine. It's nothing that you haven't encountered before.
Just need to relax more.
That's right.
It's kind of hard to relax when you're 1,500 feet above a canyon.
I hear you.
Talk all you want.
That's why the world was
Until you
watching.
get here. Praise you, Jesus.
You're doing good. Looks spectacular.
Thank you, Jesus.
Very awesome.
Got a little end-to-end thing building, Terry.
You're 11 and a half.
Nick is now at the halfway point of this
Okay,
walk.
let's stop here, Jordan. I didn't realize the time. Do you remember where you were when you saw that? Did you see that the first time when it was live? I remember that my back was pressed into the back of the chair. There were divots in the floor where my feet were. I could not stand watching that. Only you and God know where you are in your walk of faith. And I can tell you this morning, that God wants you to step out from right where you are and trust Him with everything in your life for the rest of your life. The things that comfort us, money, power, youth, strength, all those other things that have the tendency to insulate us from the reality of how much God loves us. My prayer today is that we come to understand that the events of this life are here to serve us in such a way as to get our attention off of ourselves and our eyes fixed on Jesus. That's why we are told to lay aside every encumbrance and the sin that so easily entangles us, and let us run with endurance the race that is set before us, fixing our eyes on Jesus, the author and perfecter of our faith. Well, I don't know where you are in your faith life.